Treasurer Jim Chalmers will hand down his election budget next Tuesday amid concerns of deteriorating geopolitical relations, impending trade wars, weaker stock markets and falling commodity prices. Now, cost of living measures, of course, are expected to be announced in what the Treasurer says will be a responsible budget.
The opposition claims the government needs to rein in its spending. It's a narrative it's held for some time, and Jonathan McMenamin is Head of Economic Forecast at Barrenjoey and joins us now this morning. Benjamin, thanks. Jonathan, not Benjamin.
Right.
Thank you for getting up early and joining us now in the studio. Before we crunch some of these budget numbers, if I can just ask for your opinion on this idea that Labor is expected to announce an expansion of its Help to Buy policy. The singles cap is going from 90 to 100k, the couples cap 120 to 160k. What are the merits, the economic merits of this, in your opinion?
Yeah, so if we think about the policy and what it's responding to this decline in borrowing capacity that we've seen across the country since rates started to rise. People are struggling to get into the housing market more and more as a result of this. And this policy will get some people into the housing market earlier than otherwise. I guess for us, our kind of problem with the policy is that it is a demand-side policy. And this is what we've seen from governments of both sides of politics for the last decade, that there's been a focus on the demand side of the housing market rather than the supply side. I think we put more emphasis on the government's plan for building 1.2 million homes in the next 5 years and the significance of that policy to actually address what is really ultimately the issue here, which is a lack of housing in the housing market.
More to come on this, I'm sure. The Sydney property price cap will go from 950 to 1.3. Brisbane goes from 700 to 1. We'll hear more because we know that the median house prices in those cities are way higher than what those caps are currently at. If we can turn our attention to next Tuesday night, I'm sure it's like Christmas for you and your economist colleagues.
Yep.
The Treasurer has said that next week's budget will be responsible and it will help cost of living, build our future and make our economy more resilient in the new world of global uncertainty. What are you expecting?
Yeah, so I think if we think about all of those things that he's talked about there, a lot of those things are things that they have done or instituted in previous budgets. So I think this budget will talk a little bit about the things that they've already done during their term, the last three budgets that they've delivered around Future Made in Australia, defence spending, cost of living measures. So you might not see too many new policies, brand new extensive policies that we haven't already heard about, but you might see an extension of some other policies. So we could talk about the electricity subsidies, for example. We might see an extension of those. And of course, you're talking about this new housing policy, which is again just an extension of an existing policy. So we're not expecting brand new policies on the night.
With respect to, we've touched on housing there, but you mentioned energy relief. A lot of people are hurting, we know that. What sort of areas and what possible extension might we see with cost of living relief?
Yeah, so our baseline expectation is that we'll see a full extension of the electricity subsidies from the federal government. That cost $3 billion to the last budget papers, and that gave households $300 for their electricity bills over the course of the whole year. Obviously, this is a subsidy on the price, and the price we know has gone up by around 5% on a national level. So really the problem there is more of a long-term issue, something that can't be fixed overnight, and the budget is being used as a way of sort of subsidising the hurt across the country.
The Coalition has been calling for fiscal restraint throughout this year. Is it expected, do you think, to be a financially sensible, a fiscally responsible budget?
So we're not expecting any deviation from the existing projections, which will see the budget go from 2 years of surplus into deficit. We are expecting some upgrades though. So we think the underlying cash balance in the current financial year in FY25 can improve from about negative $26 billion to something like $13 billion deficit. So a substantial improvement in the current year, and that just reflects the underlying economics, which are quite strong. We think there can be another upgrade in the following year as well, probably in the order of about $5 billion in a downward revision to that deficit. So there is some savings coming through, but again, I think it's going to be on the focus that they're going to put the focus on what they've done since they came to office, which is major changes there.
I want to ask about how concerned you are about net debt. It is forecast to increase from $881 billion in 24-25 to $1.14 trillion in 27-28. And if we can think about this like it's a household budget, it's just a country's budget, right? So your debt is escalating here. Does racking up that debt make our country country's household budget, if you like, vulnerable to be able to respond to any sort of shocks coming down the track? If we look in the last 5 years, we had the COVID shock. We've now got a potential shock with tariffs and trade issues coming down the track. Are we in an okay position with spiralling debt to handle any sort of external shocks?
Yeah, I would say we're in a great position. And the reason for that is if you compare our net debt position to any other advanced economy around the world, it is still very small. So we've got 20% net debt to share of GDP, so it's 20% of our national income each year. It goes towards, is the equivalent amount of debt that we have. If you look at the US, it's over 100%, the UK, it's the same. So the amount of debt we have in the country is quite small. Even the deficits that we're talking about we're moving into here are very small on a global stage. So I wouldn't be concerned at all about our government's ability to respond to any major crisis that could come about in the next black swan events. Who knows when they might come around.
And what sort of risk do you see as the potential tariff-induced slowdown in the US-Chinese economies? What sort of threat could that put to the budget position?
Yeah, so the direct effect from the US economy slowing down, or even the US economy placing tariffs on Australia, is pretty small. It's not even worth talking about the direct effect. Where we worry more is around the indirect effects. So we worry about the global trade pulse. Australia is a small open economy, and we do rely on the global trade pulse to be quite strong, to keep giving us high and elevated commodity prices. The good thing is that a lot of our the commodities that we do export, they tend to be quite well down the cost curve, which means that when prices fall globally, other countries around the world will stop exporting before Australia stops exporting. So we'll continue to export even if prices do come down, and that means our volumes can stay relatively elevated. The other thing that we have, which is a great offset, is the Australian dollar. So we would expect the Australian dollar to depreciate if the global pulse slowed considerably, and that would boost the budget in another way. Through a lower dollar, you get higher returns from your commodity prices. So there are a number of kind of automatic stabilisers within the budget and within the structure of our economy that makes us feel comfortable about the year ahead, though it will be a challenge.
And just in the brief 10 seconds we've got left, if we can reduce it to winners and losers, who do you think they'll be on Tuesday night?
Look, I think we're going to get more cost of living relief, and I think that's the major theme of the night. So to the extent that people are frustrated with the electricity bill, I think that relief will be quite a positive one.